Three, two, one, action.
Well, let me tell you something, brother!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Wrestling in Film podcast. Today we speak about 15 years of Fast and Furious 5, Fast 5 for short. It was the film that not only changed the franchise forever and took it to a whole nother level, just the elite level in terms of franchise success, universal appeal, and perhaps, certainly for this podcast, it was the film that changed the career trajectory of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And it recently we spoke about 15 years of The Rock's return to WWE. And this, as a fan, whether, I don't know if The Rock did this tactically, but it was a masterstroke, if he intended it or not. He returned to WWE. It was the biggest thing in wrestling. It was the biggest thing for him, his career. It was just this huge boost that The Rock came back. And on the film side, he stripped away everything he was told not to do. He went full on macho man, tough guy, badass in Fast and Furious 5. He was jacked beyond belief. And it took this franchise to a whole nother level. So instead of talking about the whole film, instead of talking about the whole story, I'm picking out 3 scenes today and how they illustrate the changing of Fast and Furious and how it changed The Rock's career forever. So stay tuned. And as Luke Hobbs, aka The Rock's character in Fast and Furious 5 said, enjoy this, watch this, and, I quote, stay out of my way. The first scene we're going to discuss, and I know I'm biased, and we're going to be heavy Rock focused, but I think The Rock's entry scene is one of the standout moments in how this franchise shifts. Because going in, how this franchise reignited itself was the inclusion of The Rock. And I read this recently, actually. It was an article. Miles, I can't remember the surname of the writer, so I apologize for that. But he wrote an article that he discussed how Fast and Furious turned the characters into superheroes. Where before it was kind of somewhat realistic and street racing, it went away from that, and the cars were still involved, but it was more about these characters being kind of indestructible superheroes and just absolute chaos kind of going on. And I think The Rock's entry into this film is symbolic of that. And the way he looked, he's unbelievably jacked, goatee, bald head, no nonsense, approach to everything, and just absolute, everything he said sounded so cool and so badass. Particularly the line I quoted to you in the introduction, "Stay that out of my way." Just everything. It was the perfect illustration of a superhero in the franchise. And I think The Rock's introduction kind of gave in wrestling terms, the rub to all the rest. And everyone then kind of became a superhero in this. And in terms of The Rock's case, it was the kind of FU to everything he was told beforehand. Don't be big, don't be jacked, don't be like the wrestler. But instead he's like, nope, I'm finally gonna be me. I'm gonna be jacked. I'm gonna be super macho, and I'm gonna be charismatic. I'm gonna be cool. I'm gonna be, super, the super tough guy that you're telling me not to be, and just absolutely jacked. And it worked because it was what we wanted to see. And that character going up against Vin Diesel, that was the appeal. And also that element, that clash of the Titans, which is what Rock did so perfectly as a wrestler, going against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and now coming back to WWE to do it with John Cena. He brought that aspect into it as well, into cinema, the Clash of Titans, and it worked. And that first entry scene, you're swept away by this, his kind of ultra masculine persona and how cool he is, and you're now waiting, okay, when are these two gonna lock horns? Scene number 2 has to be the kind of that epic face-off between Vin Diesel's character and The Rock's character. It's obviously it's a tried and tested formula in certainly action movies and just movies in general, with when you've got two kind of staple characters and that eventual first meeting. The build up to this is really, really good because we have The Rock's entry earlier, and Vin's crew are causing chaos on this side, and there's the first time they come across is when there's a chase scene in this like kind of in the Rio kind of sewers and streets. But this was the first time they meet and they jar back and forth. And again, Rock's entry to this is just awesome. Like, just awesome. You're already waiting for it. So anytime these two are going to come together, we're ready for it. Because that was what the film was based on, was The Rock versus Vin Diesel. Everything else was scattered away and still there, and family and the cars, all that kind of stuff. But now that has become secondary to our larger than life, Titans. And yeah, Rock's entry when he's just storming to Vin Diesel, no fear. He's going through all the gangsters and everything, and he's going straight to Vin. Oh, it's just so cool, man. It's literally so badass, and it's that I was talking about in the previous episodes, the adrenaline. Oof, I felt it then, and it was just a further illustration of that shift in The Rock, and kind of again what this Fast and Furious is about. Just the heavy hitters and the chaos ensuing of these larger than life heroes. And it's such a fun scene. Great dialogue back and forth. Rock, coming in, I'm gonna arrest you. Vin's like, don't think so. And it's they're constantly one-upping one another. And Rock's got some great lines, Vin's got some great lines, and then it reaches this fever pitch. And then of course Rock he's kind of tamed, because he's like, no, this is too dangerous. We can't do this here. And he's kind of just begrudgingly pulled away. But then it's just masterfully kind of, sets up that anticipation for the eventual showdown even more. And yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful scene again. Go watch it, because I've seen it millions and millions of times, probably. And the third and final scene we have to discuss, I guess is the culmination of everything I'm talking about, is the fight scene between Vin and Rock. I think in that time, in that era of movies, 2011, 2010 Expendables came out, 2011, and just in that realm, I think a lot of movies seem to, we were very heavily in the era of very short fight scenes. And I grew up on Rocky and, Arnold Schwarzenegger's, 80s movies, and you had long fight scenes, very long, entertaining, detailed, sequences. So now we were definitely in the era of, no pun intended, Fast and Furious. But this one was certainly that, but it felt long though. It was I think the fight scene itself is 3 minutes. But it was great. It was really, really well done. The detail on it was fantastic, really well put together. It again illustrates the characters brilliantly, that these two absolute badasses. And again, the indestructible superhero aspect. They're ramming through glass, they're smashing into monster trucks and ripping off doors and smashing each other with weapons and coming back like there isn't, nothing's happened to them. Yeah, they're still bleeding and stuff, but they're bouncing back like there's no tomorrow, and nothing is stopping them. It again builds up this badassery of The Rock, and what we found out and realized we wanted from him as a movie star. I want you as my new Arnold Schwarzenegger, which this certainly kind of helped him become, certainly of the modern era. And it was what Fast and Furious has now become. It was the collision of superheroes. It was nothing can stop these guys, and it's just non-stop action, 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 all out entertainment. And yeah, it was I think, yeah, like I said, it was the culmination of the story of this film and these two characters, and it was the culmination of what Fast and Furious had become, and it was beautiful. And I think it's such a fun fight scene as well. I think it was fast and it's rapid. It's got the rapid cuts, the modern day style of fight scenes, but it still had the detail and a little bit more on the length than other fight scenes have had. Specifically at that time, I remember, like for example, I think a year later, Expendables 2 came out, and it was Van Damme versus Stallone, and fun for what it was, but the fight scene was so short, and it felt very underwhelming. This did not. This had so much in 3 minutes, and both of them got their licks in. Both characters looked great, and yeah, wonderful, wonderful illustration of a great fight scene, and yeah, further illustration of why Fast and Furious became the mammoth it did, and why The Rock became the superstar, the action star of the next 10 plus years. That was my little quick 15-year recap of Fast and Furious. Like I said, the movie, that changed so much. And I remember loving it then, and the excitement of it then, and obviously the success proved why it was game-changing. It was a further illustration of it. And yeah, just looking back at it, it felt special then as a fan, certainly as a fan of The Rock. It's crazy to realize how significant that was. And without that, and especially I think at the timing it came out, especially for Rock, going back to WWE and then really taking off in Hollywood. I'm curious to see what The Rock's career would have been like had those pieces not fell together at that time. But crazy how life works. And yeah, wonderful, wonderful reflection. Go back and watch it if you haven't. Enjoy it. Turn your brains off. It's not a methodical, wonderfully crafted story. It is all out entertainment. And The Rock is awesome. Check it out. Fast and Furious 5, celebrating 15 years. If you've enjoyed this, please share, subscribe, support the channel. We're going up little by little, but we need your support for more. Thank you very much. Peace out. I'll see you soon.